Okay, we are going live on YouTube. So just a reminder that the internet is going to be with us. And again, we did go into some of our time. Just a reminder, I'm going to be on vacation. So, yeah. Oh, we won't have to really end early, I don't think. But just telling you that after this, I'm leaving on vacation. Okay. Okay, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For those who are joining us online and those who are here with us in Topeka, I'm sharing my screen so that we have what we need. And before we start studying Torah this no, I'm not going to do that. This fine morning, we'll start with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. If you say amen, you get full credit. There you go. We thank God for giving us the instruction and the commandment to busy ourselves, to engage ourselves in the study of Torah. And here we're going to hear about kings that haven't been abducted by the United States. Although we love to see tyrants disappearing, as Mao Sor reminds us. So we're all in favor. Okay, now I've already gotten into it with the internet in the first 5 minutes. Okay, so we're in 1 Kings 15. Yes, I've got that right. Okay, in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, son of Nevat, Aviam became king over Judah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Avishalom. She was possibly the daughter or granddaughter of David's son Avshalom. So they're keeping it in the family. And again, it's like this is not that far descendant from the times you remember, the times when we were all united. He continued in all the sins that his father before him had committed. He didn't start any new evil practices, but he didn't end any of the practices that his dad had allowed to happen. He was not wholehearted with the eternal his God, like his forefather David. Right. So he allowed idol worship and this is one of the big things that's going to be a trap for kings, because you got to follow all the rules or they're going to say this bad stuff about you. You're going to be called a bad, sinful king just for letting people worship God, our God, in different places that aren't the temple in Jerusalem. That alone gets you kicked, you're a bad king. Let alone, he also allowed, because his father had allowed idol worship to happen in Judah, and he didn't stop it from happening. So he gets both of those charges. Right? So he continued in all these sins, but for the sake of David, the eternal his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem. Right? That just means he was allowed the continuity of the kingship by raising up his descendant after him and by preserving Jerusalem. Right? Jerusalem wasn't destroyed and his son became king. So even though he didn't do anything good, now again, tell me something about this. They just gave you, he only ruled for 3 years. Okay? This is not a long king. What do we know about Aviam's kingship, King Aviam of Judah? That's not true. We know something. What do we know?
What they just told.
Yeah. What was that? We know who his mom was. We know that he continued in these bad things religiously. And we know that his son became king. The Deuteronomist, the Deuteronomic historian, is not interested in whether you made the economy go up. The Deuteronomic historian is not interested even so much. They will mention things like economy and battles sometimes, but it's not interested in that.
You're wholehearted with the Lord.
It's only interested in your religious observance, whether you followed the rules that God had set forth for kings. And in Deuteronomy, not just for kings, but generally for the people being worshipped in the one place in Jerusalem. Now, again, these rules don't affect, you might say to me, well, this temple isn't Jerusalem. We're not in Jerusalem right now. Of course, that changed with prayer. Prayer is not sacrifice. This worship I'm referring to is purely sacrifice. Sacrifice is, was, and always should be, although at the moment we don't do sacrifice, in Jerusalem at the temple, not just in Jerusalem, because if you did it outside the temple, evil. You do it at the temple.
It depends on how you define sacrifice. Sacrifice is serving others, not necessarily burning animals or figurative.
No. This sacrifice is burning animals. This is animal sacrifice. This is very specifically. This is the sacrifice they were referring to in the Torah. We say later, after the destruction of the temple in 70 of the Common Era, we then said, you know what, we're going to turn to avodah shebalev, or worship of the heart, which is different from avodah beveit hamikdash, or worship in the Holy Temple. Which that is very specifically always animal sacrifice, whereas what we do now is always very specifically this. Now, when God willing, the temple is rebuilt, there is a discussion in Jerusalem. There would be a discussion probably about, theoretically, we might return to temple sacrifice. We only don't do it now because we don't have the temple. So we are exempt from animal sacrifice because there is no temple in Jerusalem at which to do it. But I don't personally think that's what we would do.
Yeah, that's what Jesus in the New Testament was protesting when he took the whipping and was beating the.
I thought he was upset about the money.
Yeah,
because
you have to buy the
right.
Sacrifice.
You're right, because most people, that was a convenience. Most people at the time no longer literally took because the problem was you couldn't sacrifice an animal at the temple if it had any blemishes. Now, what happens if you live 50 miles away and you put a rope around your sheep's neck and you drag it 50 miles to the temple in Jerusalem? It might get a blemish on the way, at which point you now have an animal you can't use, an animal you can't sacrifice. Maybe you can carry it back home the 50 miles, but you certainly won't be doing your sacrifice that day. So what the temple did was it raised perfect animals without blemish. And you would go there and instead maybe you'd even bring an animal and you'd sell it in the market. And with the money you had, you would buy a perfect an animal without blemish, which again, the temple in this way kind of functioned a little bit like a restaurant. Just understand. Because it was like a barbecue, the sacrifice was like a barbecue in a way. I mean, come on. We've seen pictures of it. It's a big grate over coals and fire. We have that today. It's called a barbecue. And so I don't mean to be
Facetious.
Sacrilegious. I'm not being facetious. It is a bar. I mean, it's semantics is the only difference. So they would cook it essentially. Remember that 10% is removed as a tithe for the priests for them to eat because they don't raise their own. They don't have any way to make money and stuff. They get their eating food off of a portion of what people bring for sacrifice. The remainder of it, the leftovers, which are useless, according to the text, they are ritually useless, but they are very tasty. And you can then take those leftovers and eat them with your family in a big celebration.
Okay.
So I never really understood what Jesus' problem with what was going on in the temple was, because to me it seems like the best version of how you can make sure that everyone can uphold the law and do their sacrifice. But I didn't read the story, to be fair, so there's probably stuff I'm missing about it that I don't know.
The intent, basically.
Every bureaucracy has its failures. And the temple certainly had its failures, I'm sure. I have no doubt. Because every bureaucracy, human bureaucracy, has its failures. And this was a big one. This was all the Jews had to come here to do this 3 times a year. So it's a big deal. Anyway, any thoughts before we move on? Well, I've been speaking for a while.
Sacrifice in a different way. I've always been kind of sickened by it,
Yeah.
but it's no different than what people do now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, as a vegetarian,
Except they actually sanctified it by saying, we're dedicating this to God. And then the smoke is the idea that goes up and God enjoys the sacrifice. And then the priests get their food and you get your food, and the animal isn't wasted. It's just done in a ritual way, cooked in a ritual way. Yeah.
How can we today believe that God would rather us spill the blood of animals and offer that kind of sacrifice than offer our heart to him in prayer?
Doesn't he want both?
Well, to be fair, before, when we had the temple in Jerusalem, there wasn't a lot of established liturgy or prayers and stuff. That wasn't really, prayers were mostly spontaneous. Moses shouts to God, El na rafan Allah, to heal his sister Miriam. The what's her name, who cries out and gets called a drunk, Hannah, is it Hannah? I think it's Hannah. And she's like, God, please give me I mean, it's really, prayer is different before the temple is destroyed. The rabbis set a liturgy to match the times of temple sacrifice. Shacharit, Mincha, and Arvit, the 3 times of prayer each day, are meant to be the 3 times sacrifice was offered in the temple in Jerusalem. It's meant to mirror that. How could God want that? First of all, I don't know. It's not for me to say what God prefers of the 2 things. I would only say that clearly God did institute that system, so for a time it had its purpose and wisdom. I would also say that God has said that the animals of the earth are for our consumption, so that it is mutar, it is permitted by God. You agree?
Yeah, that was a change.
It was a change, yes, but God made it.
Yes. But they're also his creatures, his creation. I would think again, I don't know what God wants either, Rabbi, but I would imagine that he would want our love, our loyalty, our commitment, rather than the blood of animals.
I think, first of all, where I would say is, I think God does want those things. I don't know why that would say that God doesn't want this other thing. Those are non sequiturs, right? I mean, like, God could want us to be loyal and committed and loving, and also the blood of animals, if that's what God wants. I mean, you can't say God really would love for us to be faithful and kind, and also to build things with roofs. Like those things don't relate. Whether or not God wants animal sacrifice in the future, it probably won't fall to me to make that decision, to be honest. But certainly should we merit a Messiah, since Mashiach will build the 3rd temple, Mashiach will be just like David was told he wouldn't build the temple, his son Solomon would. The Jewish text believes that the descendant of David, who is the Mashiach, will build the 3rd temple, like Solomon built the 1st temple. And so I assume he'll make that call. Or she'll, but probably he'll. It says king. I don't know what to tell you. That'll be the Messiah's call, probably, not mine. And I'll just do what he says. Right? So we'll leave it there. Okay. So, right. So he got that for David, yet for the sake of David, the eternal, his God, gave him a lamp in Jerusalem by raising up his descendant after him and by preserving Jerusalem. For David had done what was pleasing to God and never turned throughout his life from all that had been commanded him. except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. Right? Right? And this is good. They want to say this because it wants you to know that even, first of all, David was not perfect, and David was punished received a punishment. His punishment wasn't that he would be remembered as a bad king. His punishment was just that he wouldn't be able to build the temple. That was his punishment. Bingo bango.
Well, and the baby that he and Bathsheba had died.
Well, yeah, yes.
As a father, that would be punished.
You're right. I don't mean to minimize that. No, I'm not trying to minimize that. I'm just saying that also the theological punishment, though it certainly was in part, you're right, the death of that child. Yes.
He also had some rebellions he had to deal with. It was no fun at all.
But you see how we're already going to start smoothing the story of the Deuteronomist in order to set an expectation for these kings that he will judge. Is going to smooth David a bit, right? If you read this line, for David had done what was pleasing to God and never turned throughout his life from all that had been commanded him, except in the matter of Uriah. So now we're saying David was absolutely perfect with God, except this one thing. Yeah. Does that jive with your recollection of the story we just read? Right, you remember it was a little bit more complicated than that. Right? He kind of got lazy. He kind of stopped fighting. He kind of had rebellion. We're gloss.
Smoothed it over.
Right, we smoothed that over. We don't need to focus on that. David did what was pleasing to God. This guy didn't. We're going to judge everyone by David, so he's got to be the best. And also, quite frankly, it sets up the expectation that we're going to start being developed throughout these prophetic books of a future king that will be the son of David, that will be of the line of David, who will restore Israel to its full greatness and eventually bring peace and justice to the entire planet as Messiah. Until he does that, we haven't found him. There was war between Aviam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. So he was only there 3 years, but again, they had all these they're fighting a lot. The other events of Aviam's reign, we're going to get this at the end of all king going overs. The other events of Aviam's reign and all his actions are recorded in the annals of the kings of Judah. There was war between Aviam and Jeroboam. So the main thing you need to know is the Israel and Judah were already constantly fighting each other. And of course, a house divided cannot stand. So that's what's going to cause that. You can already see but again, this is this interesting book. There's a book, the Annals of the Kings of Divrei Hayamim of the kings of Judah and the kings of, and of course Divrei Hayamim is what we call Chronicles. So it could be Chronicles. I don't think it is. I think Chronicles is actually a different book, and that this book is lost. That somewhere there was a record of the economic and political fortunes of the kingdoms at this time, but this book doesn't care about that. It's saying, if you want that information, censuses and stuff, go look at the Annals of the Kings of Judah, at their official record books. We're not involved in that project. We're just involved, this book, in Gesundheit, in the project of whether or not they did the religious thing correctly. It ends here with Aviam rested with his ancestors. He was buried in the city of David, and his son Asa succeeded him as king.
Small question, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Judah and Israel fought all these years simply over territory and power.
Probably just borders. These are probably just border skirmishes. They all have, they have, they probably have a border, and they're probably somebody stole from somebody and they fought, it's probably low level. It's probably not major campaigns. We're just talking like they keep fighting with each other, but they were never working together. Like from this, you can infer they were never working together. They never allied against, they weren't yet in any place where they were. So they were really just focused on this little area. This is important because at this time, Egypt and Assyria are growing again now. And what are our countries doing? They're fighting like this. They're just focused like this on each other. Meanwhile, from here and from here, big forces are slowly coming and taking more territory and moving towards the land of Israel. And we're still in the middle here, just fighting each other. And it's setting that up. So in the end, you'll be like, well, I kind of get what happened. From not just from a theological exile place, but from a geopolitical, well, what did they think was going to happen? You really can see the story both ways. And that's why it's setting that up for you by telling you that they were fighting. They should have been working together, but they weren't. In the 20th year of King Jeroboam of Israel, so remember, Jeroboam reigns for a long time. So in the 20th year of King Jeroboam of Israel, Asa became king over Judah. He reigns for a long time. He reigned 41 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Avishalom. So Asa was young. And it says his mother's name, but the it's 1513. It says this, yeah, right. I think it says his mother, but the commentator believes it's that mother means queen mother in this case. That it was like his regent. Asa, 41 years he reigned. People didn't live past 60 almost ever. So what does that mean? He became king as a child. So his grandmother, the queen mother of his dad, reigned as regent for him. She was, that's a thing that you've heard of. I don't have to explain that concept, I don't think. We all saw Game of Thrones, so, or some of us did. Or you saw him, I don't know, different things. Jane Seymour was I guess I don't know. Don't listen to me. Okay, so it's not his mother, but that. Asa did what was pleasing to God, as his forefather David had done. That's so nice. He expelled the cult prostitutes from the land, and he removed all the idols that his ancestors had made. What?
Male prostitute?
Me too. Yeah.
So mine says consecrated workers. But
Expel the male prostitutes from the land and removed all the idols of his ancestors.
yeah, Kadeshim are like, because Kadeshim means, because it has the same root as Kadosh. Kadesh means holy.
Right.
What it means is sanctified ones, more literally, and it means they serve. I don't even know. We don't do this. Isn't part of our thing really, but it was part of many religions of the time, and these people decided to make it part of Judaism as well, in a way. Yes, there were cult prostitutes. Cult meaning religious prostitutes. People who served, and instead of worship of the heart, they worshipped, their worship took a different form. But it's not part of our text. There's no provision for it. We don't have rules for it because we don't allow it. But they made a change. The king can do that because he's the king. And they went with it for a couple generations. But Asa said, no, we're getting rid of these Kadeshim, these again, the Steinsaltz calls them cult prostitutes, which is what they would have been called in any other religion in the ancient Near East. Consecrated workers is the silliest. This is a 2023 translation, so we don't want to call them anything, offensive, I guess. But yeah, you say male prostitutes. Yes, they were usually men.
So
They were usually men.
who was visiting them? The women or other men?
I guess other men.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's sodomy right there.
Yeah. men who perform sodomy as part of ritualistic idol worship.
Okay.
So they were there. They probably weren't there for us so much. They were probably there for. Remember that his dad had put or his granddad had let the first king Rehoboam had allowed idols to be placed around the temple. So these people were there to focus on those gods probably and not ours. But nonetheless, yes, they. Again, why is sodomy forbidden in the Torah? Because it was a practice of the nations that surrounded us. I'm not making an argument as to whether it wasn't a priori evil, but like most of the injunctions, it is to make us better and different. Different from the nations around us who do things that God is not pleased with. It's what the Torah says. I can't make it say anything else. I am perfectly accepting of everyone and believe that what someone does privately is their own business. But although cult prostitutes, I'm against, and I'm not afraid to say so.
And the text there says that idols are gilulim, which means literally excrement.
You know what gilulim. You know the root of that because what was that? Nothing. It doesn't matter. Golgotha is the same root as that.
Right.
And so excrement. It comes from the same root. It's Aramaic, but it comes from in the Hebrew version, it's the same root. They're just saying that the idols are bad things. They're just saying the idols are excrement, essentially. But it means when it says excrement, it doesn't mean there were mounds of feces in the temple. It means they were taking the idols out of the temple. So he's just letting you know this is what it means, and this is why it uses this word in the Hebrew, but that's not what that's not what we're dealing with. Right. It's a derogatory term for idols. That's all. See if I can get canceled by the end of this. Okay. He also deposed his grandmother, Makkah, from the rank of queen mother because she had made an abominable thing, a monstrosity, a horrific idol for the goddess Asherah. You've heard me talk about Asherah before, right? Sacred tree post. Evil, evil, evil. Asa cut down her monstrous, abominable thing and burnt it in the Wadi Kidron, in the Kidron Valley. Which is just, remember, Jerusalem is tomahawk, like a arrowhead style point. And so there are two valleys at the, and so, yeah, one of them is the Kidron Valley, the other one we'll get to. The shrines indeed were not abolished. However, in other words, he didn't get rid of what he didn't get. However, Asa was wholehearted with the eternalist God all his life. So this is the king. This king actually gets a pass, even though the only thing he doesn't do is worship sites to God outside of Jerusalem. He doesn't get rid of those. When it says shrines or bamot, bimas, right? He's essentially saying these are other sacrificial platforms that are constructed so that people don't have to go that far to have they don't have to go all the way to Jerusalem. However, what does the Torah say? It says go all the way to Jerusalem. So he didn't do that, but he still says, he didn't do that, but he was wholehearted. He did a lot of good things. He rolled back idolatry. So the Deuteronomic historian is giving him a B+. Essentially. Right? Now he's going to say more good things. He brought into the house of God, into the temple, all the consecrated things of his father and his own consecrated things.
Not even a name on us.
Well, maybe he'll get there at the end. Silver, gold, and utensils, vessels, the different things you used. Remember that it had gotten plundered in the last king. Remember that not in the last king, because nothing happened during the last king. when Rehoboam was king, they got plundered, and they had to give all their gold from Solomon and stuff away. But this guy brought in and had new things made, and things that his dad had made, or maybe in this case it means Rehoboam or even Solomon, but he brought some of those things back in. So we're reestablishing the glory and the majesty of what's going on here. Right. He says, right, this valuable collection consisted not merely of items dedicated to the temple service, but also the reserve of the royal treasury itself, which was stored in the temple, because why would you steal from there? Okay, now we've got, so how did he get all those things, right? It got plundered. Well, here's the story. There was war between Asa and King Baasha of Israel all their days, right? So Baasha had started a new dynasty in Israel, and it was just a continuation of what was going on all this time as we continue. King Baasha of Israel advanced against Judah, and he fortified Ramah to prevent anyone belonging to King Asa of Judah from going out or coming in. So Asa took all the silver and gold that remained in the treasuries of the house of God, as well as the treasuries of the royal palace, and he entrusted them to his officials. King Asa sent them to King Ben-Hadad, son of Tabrimon, son of Hezion of Aram, who resided in Damascus, with this message: there is a pact between you and me, and between your father and my father. I herewith send you a gift of silver and gold. Go and break your pact with King Baasha of Israel, so that he may withdraw from me. So what's he doing? Yeah. He's saying, what if I give you a bunch of money and you stop working with the guy who's now, because Israel's doing the smart thing. They have a neighbor to their north who's powerful. What did they do? They said, let's be friends.
The enemy of my enemy.
But in this case, he's saying, what if we pincered Israel when you turn on them? They'll never see it coming. Ben-Hadad responded to King Asa's request. He sent his army officers against the towns of Israel and captured Ijon, Dan, Avil Beit Makkah, and all Kinneret, I guess, as well as all the land of Naphtali. So these are all like the most northern cities around the Sea of Galilee and up to the Sea of Galilee. So all that you think of as northern Israel and all that, he came down and took all that, basically. And of course, Baasha had all his forces down south near Jerusalem. Ramah is pretty near Jerusalem. So when Baasha heard about it, he stopped fortifying Ramah and he remained in Tirzah, which is the capital was built by Jeroboam as the new capital at the time. The capital of northern Israel is gonna move a bunch, or a couple times. Is gonna move a couple times. Then King Asa mustered all Judah with no exemptions, and they carried away the stones and timber with which Baasha had fortified Ramah. With these, King Asa fortified Geva, Benjamin, and Mitzpah. All the other events of Asa's reign and all his exploits and all his actions and the towns he fortified are recorded in the annals of the kings of Judah. However, in his old age he suffered from a foot ailment. Asa rested with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of his forefather David. His son Jehoshaphat succeeded him as king. Anyone want to make comments about Asa before we move to again, because we have to keep time is gonna move, and we're gonna move a little bit back so we can catch up to what happened in Israel and and stuff like that. Does anyone have any comments about Asa?
Just that it feels like something's stuck on. He suffered from a foot ailment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did they put that in there?
And
Did he die of a foot ailment? I mean,
Yeah.
Yes, apparently. If you read the book of Chronicles,
okay.
which again tells these stories a little bit differently, he did not pray to God about his foot ailment, he sought doctors.
Oh.
And their treatment was ineffective. And he died.
Wonder what it could have been. Gout?
Yeah.
Abscess?
He couldn't die of gout. Maybe he had like an ingrown toenail that got infected or something. And like, right, yeah.
Maybe he had diabetes and.
It's true. I guess he could have been a diabetic and he went and they couldn't, maybe they tried to cut it off and he bled out, you know, I mean,
Whatever.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't cut things off back then for probably a bad idea without tourniquets. I don't know. I mean, maybe they could do a rudimentary one. I don't know. But
We had problems of infection in the Civil War, so I'm sure they.
yes, no, I know that's true. I'm sure they had terrible problems. They probably just took fire and pushed it up and get to burn, you know, to cauterize the ends of the stump. And it probably didn't work that well.
No.
Again, probably not saying that doctors are bad, probably just saying that doctors at this time were very effective. And okay, maybe he didn't pray over it, but in the end, nothing was probably gonna, I mean, let's be real.
Mhm.
Whatever his problem was probably, but he reigned 41 years, which was pretty cool. But he probably only lived to be about 46, which is probably less cool.
But we'll probably say doctors were ineffective 50 years from now when we make breakthroughs in.
No, you're right, exactly. In 100 years, when we can cure everything by just, you know, like in a Star Trek, you just psh, and then you're cured of leukemia, whatever. Like, yeah, then we'll be like, man, can you believe they used to like try and inject poison into people to cure them of, like, you know, it's like, isn't that insane? But like, it's what we got. So, yeah, we always seem dumb in the past, I guess. I don't know. Okay, Nadav of Jeroboam. Nadav, son of Jeroboam, had become king over Israel in the 2nd year of King Asa of Judah. So back when Asa was still a kid and before he deposed his mom or grandma. And he reigned over Israel for 2 years. Again, we got a 3-year king, we got a 2-year king. We're getting a lot of short kingships in this thing, but you'll see. Nadav, he did what was displeasing to God. He continued in the ways of his father, in the sins that he caused Israel to commit. The golden calves and foreign rituals continued throughout Nadav's reign. Then Baasha, son of Ahiah, of the house of Issachar, conspired against him. And Baasha struck him down at Gibeaton. What is it? I gotta look at the Hebrew here. Gibton. I don't know why it's that. At Gibton of the Philistines, while Nadav and all Israel were laying siege to Gibton. So the Philistines were fighting with Israel up north in the west, and he was fighting, and Baasha convinced some of these soldiers to betray him. And now Baasha gets to be king. Baasha killed him in the 3rd year so again, he was there for very little time. 2 years he got. In the 3rd year of King Asa of Judah, and became king in his stead. So his reign wasn't even a full 2 years. As soon as he became king, he struck down all the house of Jeroboam. He did not spare a single soul belonging to Jeroboam until he destroyed it, in accordance with the words spoken through God's servant Ahiah the Shilonite. Remember, if you go back, Jeroboam was told, you get to be king until you die, because I made that deal with you. But your house isn't going to get to be part of this. So the guy's there for barely 2 years. He's gone, and then Baasha kills every other member of the house of Jeroboam. And so the Torah is saying, this sounds bad, but it is a fulfillment of prophecy. So whether it's bad or not bad, it's what happened, and it was always going to happen, is what it's essentially saying. So God's command came true. The other events of Nadav's reign and all his actions are recorded in the annals of the kings of Judah. There was war between Asa and King Baasha of Israel all their days. In the 3rd year of King, so now we're going to get into, now we're getting the record of Baasha. All the things we talked about Baasha were part of the last king's reign. Part of Nadav of Israel. Now we're going into Baasha of Israel. So in the 3rd year of King Asa of Judah, Baasha, son of Ahiah, became king in Tirzah over all Israel for 24 years. He did what was displeasing to God. He followed the ways of Jeroboam and the sins that he caused Israel to commit. So while he became king, he didn't change any of the religious errors that the previous kings of Israel were making. Which, to be fair, there's some religious errors he can never fix because they're never going to pray in Jerusalem. They're never going to sacrifice in Jerusalem. That's another country. We're never going to say our seat of government is in Toronto. Just not going to happen. That would be really stupid for like a bunch of good reasons. Israel's head of government is never going to be in Riyadh or Tehran. That would be stupid for a bunch of really good reasons. They're fighting all the time. They're never going to go to Jerusalem to worship. So because they're always going to break that rule, they're always going to be bad. Their existence is a placeholder, though, I remind you. We're all supposed to be together in the end. So they're not, and even God said to Jeroboam, he said, you're really just here until I get what I need, which we'll see what that is. And in this case, it's going to be exile, but we'll get there. Okay. The word of God, now we're going to get a prophet story. The word of God came to Yehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha. So Baasha did bad stuff, and what happens when you do bad stuff? God goes,
Speaks through a prophet.
ring, ring, prophet. Hello, prophet. It's time for you to do your thing and go and tell him he's being an evil, wicked meanie, and also probably going to die. And then the prophet goes, "Oh, great! Now I got to go tell the king that." Okay, so this is what the word of God came, and Yehu, a son of Hanani, was to go to Baasha, king of Israel, and say, because I lifted you up from the dust and made you a ruler over my people Israel, but you followed the way of Jeroboam and caused my people Israel to sin, provoking my anger with their sins, I am going to sweep away Baasha and his house. I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nevat.
Oops.
Right? He's like, you didn't seem to get it. I made you did this to him. I'm going to do it to you. Why don't you guys ever get this, right? So anyone belonging to Baasha who dies in the town, this is the same thing we heard about Jeroboam, shall be devoured by dogs. Gross. And anyone belonging to him who dies in the open country shall be devoured by the sky chickens. Sorry, the birds of the sky, the Ofa Shamayim, the heaven chickens. Sorry. The predatory birds will eat those in the field. By the way, then we're getting into the other events of Baasha's reign, and his actions and his exploits are recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. Baasha rested with his ancestors and was buried in Tirzah. His son Elah succeeded him as king. But the word of God had come through the prophet Yehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha and against his house, that it would fare like the house of Jeroboam, which he himself had struck down, because of all the evil that he did that was displeasing to God, provoking anger with his deeds. And again, we're going to get another like barely 2-year reign to wipe away this house. So he dies, he's buried, his son becomes king briefly. In the 26th year, again, Asa reigns 41 years. So in the 26th year of King Asa of Judah, Elah, son of Baasha, became king over Israel at Tirzah for 2 years. His officer Zimri, commander of half the chariotry, committed treason against him while he was at the capital, Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Artza. So Artza was like his head security guy. Zimri entered, struck him down, and killed him. He succeeded him as king, in the 27th year of King Asa of Judah. No sooner had he become king and ascended the throne than he struck down all the house of, same thing again, all the house of Baasha. He did not leave a single male of his, nor any kin or friend. Even his friends got killed. Thus Zimri destroyed all the house of Baasha in accordance with the word that God had spoken through his prophet Jehu. Now again, just like with the commentators note that just like with Baasha, Zimri didn't do this because a prophet came to him and said, you're going to do this. He wasn't picked. God just said, this isn't like when it was Saul and then David and then where God was picking. As we move through history at this point, God is going to be slightly and then more and more recessed from the direct interference in human affairs. And in this case, God doesn't pick the successor. He just says, I ordain that you and your house will be wiped out. And because God ordains it, it will happen. It doesn't really matter who. He doesn't pick someone. He doesn't send a prophet to say, you will be the king of, and also it's Israel, quite frankly, right? It's not Judah. It's not Jerusalem. It's not David. It's a placeholder, like I was saying. So he's like, okay, you're going to go away. Zimri was fulfilling prophecy, but he wasn't doing it because he knew he was fulfilling prophecy. He's just a traitorous bad guy. This is important because he wasn't picked because he would be good. So you shouldn't think when he does bad things or when all these, you see how we've gone, we're so far removed from God. The last king of Israel God picked was Jeroboam, the first king of Israel. The first king of divided Israel, I mean. God hasn't picked any of the kings since then. He's only said each house, first Jeroboam's, then Baasha's, and we'll get to and then after Baasha we had Zim. We'll get to everybody, but we're just getting more and more removed from some sort of God-ordained monarchy to kind of a warlord status, and you kind of see why Asa was fighting with them throughout time. Because now all we're getting, Zimri's a warlord, essentially. Right? Mm-hmm. He's a king who was a military general who just killed the last king. Not because God told him to, just because he wanted to be king. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it never happens in the world. I'm just saying don't attribute any of this to God. God's like, they're making choices. I'm just saying that the king and his family's got to go. Yeah.
It's part of an overstory. I hear what you're saying. God is withdrawing more and more from the kingdom of Israel. We also see as a result that in Judah, you have long-lasting kingships, whereas in Israel...
Just one so far, though.
Just one.
I mean, we'll have different... Asa became king when he was like 4. Yeah. So you got to remember that like his kingship is long because he was a small child when he became king. And around when he's 12, 13, he deposes his grandma, right, and becomes actual king. So really he reigns for about 27 years by himself. And again, he doesn't live to be 60 even. He just becomes king at a young age. It's kind of like how, right? I mean, Elizabeth got to be queen so long of the UK because she became queen at 27. And also medicine's way better now than it was then, so you can live into your 90s. Nobody lived into their 90s this time. Nobody, literally no one. I mean, I get, Moshe might, but in this time, by the time we're in this time, it's been a long time since anyone's really lived that long. We don't get Abraham or, we don't get really long lives at this point. We've moved more into the modern human as we understand them, and they're, anyway. Okay. So Zimri destroyed the house of Baasha because of the sinful acts that Baasha and his son Elah committed, and they caused Israel to commit, provoking the anger of the Eternal, the God of Israel, with their false gods. The other events of Elah's reign and all his actions are recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. This is the best part. I love this. During the 27th year of King. Now, what happens to traitors who do traitorous things? What do I keep saying? The problem with being outside the law is you don't have the protection of it.
Right.
When you're an outlaw, you tend to meet an outlaw's end.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during the 27th year of King Asa of Judah, Zimri reigned in Tirzah for 7 days. At the time, the troops were encamped at Givton of the Philistines. When the troops who were encamped there learned that Zimri had committed treason and had struck down the king, that very day, and I warned you about this person. I've told you about this person. You've heard of this person from me for months. And now he's here. My favorite general king, although he's not great. That very day in the camp, all Israel acclaimed the army commander Omri, king of Israel. Right? They were saying, hold on. If we're just picking kings based on whoever kills the last king, that's terrible. We're the army. And we think it's like, but in a way, is it the army or is it, who knows about Caesar? Who's heard stories about Caesar? Maybe it's enough to have even seen the play Julius Caesar. I'm not sure it is, though. Caesar inspired a love from his men. Napoleon, too, is a good example of this. Of course, their people would acclaim them king, their soldiers. That's what's happening here. He's a Napoleon. Omri is a general beloved by his soldiers. And with their martial force, he's going to destroy the treasonous usurper. And hey, since that guy's already killed all the members of the last guy's family, guess somebody has to be king. Somebody will. It'll be Omri. Omri and all Israel then withdrew from Givton. They're like, we're done with the Philistines. We're not fighting them anymore. And laid siege to the capital, Tirzah. When Zimri saw that the town was taken, he went into the citadel of the royal palace and burned down the royal palace over himself. And so he died. It's funny. It's so funny because the commentator says he committed suicide in order to end his life in an impressive, dramatic fashion.
A little bit like Hitler.
A little bit. Just in that one specific way, I guess. Although he didn't do that. He didn't do that. He just shot himself. He didn't, right, or shot himself. Yeah, he didn't, it wasn't dramatic or impressive. It was sad and in a bunker.
He's still alive in Argentina.
No, he's not. He would have been dead by now anyway. Nobody lives that long. If he never lived there, he's dead now. But he didn't. He died in that bunker in Germany. We thankfully have we have the evidence, and the Soviets burned his body and never said where they distributed the ashes, so that no one would be able to visit it as a pilgrimage site, like what we do nowadays. We did with Osama bin Laden, and we dropped his ashes over the Mediterranean so that no one would ever be able to go to a place and mourn him. Anyway, so he did a big spectacular thing. So what do you know now? You got a besieged royal city and no palace. Maybe we move the capital. Sorry, I should stop doing this. We should just read the text and talk about it. Okay. And so he died because of the sins that he committed and caused Israel to commit, doing what was displeasing to God and following the ways of Jeroboam. By the way, he was king for 7 days. So how much did he do? The commentators are saying God is just saying he would have done that. He would have done the same things as Jeroboam if he'd reigned longer. But he didn't, because he only reigned 7 days. The other events of Zimri's reign and the treason that he committed. Again, Zimri is just like, we don't even like this. This guy was never really there. And the treason he committed are recorded in the annals of the kings of Judah. Later in the book of Kings, Zimri is cited as the prototype for a rebel whose only success was killing the previous king. So that's worth remembering for when we get to the second book of Kings. Then the people of Israel split into two factions. Goodness, now we have three states. No, we don't. A part of the people followed Tivni, son of Ginat, to make him king, and the other part followed Omri. Those who followed Omri proved stronger, because they had the army, than those who followed Tivni, son of Ginat. Tivni died, probably on the battlefield, and Omri became king. In the 31st year of King Asa of Judah, who's still reigning, God bless him, Omri became king over Israel for 12 years. He reigned in Tirzah 6 years.
Long reign for Israel.
It's a long reign for Israel. Yes, it's the longest reign Israel has had so far. Yes, exactly. Which is why Omri and what we will call the Omride dynasty, because he actually gets people to follow him. He's the first king to get more than one person to follow him in Israel. This is why I mentioned him as such an important figure in the Northern Kingdom's history, because he's really the first typesetting king for that country. Then he bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver. He built a town on the hill and named the town that he built Samaria, Shomron, after Shemer, the original owner of the hill. What do you know about Shomron? What is have you heard the word Shomron before? So Shomron in modern Israel is the term for the northern administrative district of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. Shomron. And some people call it the Shomron. And it's a term for a large area of Judea and Samaria. And of course, Samaria, he bought Samaria, Judea and Samaria. Samaria today is still, we Jews often call the West Bank, because the West Bank just means the West Bank of the Jordan River. Lots of places are on the West Bank, including parts of Israel. So that's not a very useful term. We prefer the term Judea and Samaria, because the West Bank corresponds to these areas of the kingdoms of Judea and the kingdom of Israel, which was capitaled in Samaria.
And that's where the Samaritans lived.
Yes, the Samaritans come from Samaria, and they'll be later, obviously, because after the exile, there are some people who are moved. Remember what the Babylonians did when they exiled people? They would take a leadership group of people and move them somewhere else, and then they would move people from somewhere else into the area to totally make it so that everyone was just part of the empire. No one felt a deep attachment to that part of the land. But something they didn't expect happened. The Persians and the Babylonians. The Samaritans, the people that were moved into Samaria to semi-offset the Jews who lived there, fell in love with the Jewish religion and the Jewish God. And they decided to, without any guidance or assistance, become Jews. And so when the king of Persia, Koresh, sends the Jews, Ezra and Nehemiah, back, the leadership of the Jews comes back to the land of Israel, the Samaritans are there and they say, hello, welcome, we are also Jews. And the Jews who come back and go, no. It's more than that, right? They come back and they say, you don't just get to pick, guys. It's more than that. And the Jews reject the Samaritans. The Jews say that the Samaritans are not of them, and our peoples go separate ways from there.
Yeah, they're ostracized in the New Testament. Yeah.
They're ostracized because why? Because Jesus and his friends are Jews. And they don't like, and Samaritans and Jews don't get along because of that. Jesus has an ethnic prejudice against the Samaritans.
Jesus
right.
befriends.
Yes, no, I'm sure. Yeah, no, Jesus. Some Jews at the time. Perhaps Jesus doesn't, because he's very
ecumenical.
Very ecumenical and caring and all those wonderful things.
I have a
Yeah.
question. I thought the Assyrians distributed a lot of the people of northern Israel.
Northern Israel, yes, but then with Judah specifically also is the Babylon. I'm using, yes, Assyria did the northern kingdom and Babylonia did the
No.
southern kingdom, but yes, you're right. For the northern kingdom, Samaria, you would probably have that, but it wasn't, a lot of that also didn't happen until even Persia came, you know, Babylonians did that too because they conquered all of it. They had the northern, they had all that area, so they did it too. Okay. And again, the commentator notes here, Omri is really, really a good in king ways. We're not talking religiously, but in other way, in every other way, he's a really good king. He, the city of Samaria stood for a very, very, very long time. He was strong and fierce. He improved his kingdom's foreign relations. He expanded his empire, almost not quite, but seeking perhaps even to rival Solomon's in size. And according to the Mesha Stele, King Mesha, which this is an extra biblical source. We know he existed because this guy writes about him on a big stone, a stele that they put up. According to the Mesha Stele, Omri conquered cities in Moab, and archaeological findings in Samaria likewise reveal a variety of vessels imported from other countries. So it's worth noting that because in verse 25, Omri did what was displeasing to God. He was worse than all who preceded him. So again, it's worth noting that in some ways he was a very good, powerful king and leader. In the ways our book cares about, less so. He was worse than all those who preceded him. He followed all the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nevat, and the sins that he committed and caused Israel to commit, provoking the anger of the Eternal, the God of Israel, with their futilities. The other events of Omri's reign and all his actions and the exploits he performed are recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. Omri rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria. And his son, Achav, which you also know, there you go, and his son Achav succeeded him as king. And Achav is going to be quite a guy. Achav, son of Omri, became king over Israel in the 38th year of King Asa of Judah. And Achav, son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria for 22 years. So he's now even longer than his father. Though his father was older when he took over. So, you know, it's like, that's also a big part of this. Achav, son of Omri, did what was displeasing to God more than all who preceded him, right? And his dad did that, but then he topped him. He comes in and I'm even worse. I'm going to do, and of course he does way worse. Let's get to it. Not content to follow the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nevat, he didn't just do those things. He married one of these people. He took his wife, and we all know her. We all know of this woman. Isabel. No, we don't call her Isabel, right? What does everyone call her? Jezebel. Right. So he took his wife, Jezebel, daughter of King Etbal of the Phoenicians, and he went and served Baal and worshipped him. He erected an altar to Baal in the temple of Baal that he built in Samaria. So there's a temple to God in Jerusalem. What is there in Samaria? A temple of Baal. Uh-oh. It's very bad, right? He did not, the commentator saying he didn't treat the worship of Baal as a temporary, oh, this is my wife, she wants to worship Baal, whatever. He was like, no, there's a temple where people can worship Baal here in Samaria. Openly. Achav also made an Asherah. A sacred post, it says here, but sacred post is translated from the word Asherah, which is the goddess Asherah. Achav did more to provoke the anger of the Eternal, the God of Israel, than all the kings of Israel who preceded him. During his reign, Heel, the Bethelite, I don't know, from Beit-Elite, fortified Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of Aviram, his firstborn. So when he did that, his firstborn died. And set its gates in place at the cost of Seguv, his youngest, in accordance with the words that God had spoken through Yehoshua ben Nun. Back in the book of Joshua, when the walls of Jericho fell, they were told not to rebuild it, or else certain punishments would come about.
That's why his kids died.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he wasn't supposed to rebuild Jericho, but they did. Nobody's really that upset that today Jericho is a Palestinian city. We'd rather not have it, I think. Okay, we're going to end on this because when we come in, we get finally yet another major figure, one of the most major figures in all of the Jewish religion, Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet.
Oh, that's right.
And Elijah will come in and say, Achav, you, sir, are a truly bad dude.
Right.
You and his wife, and Achav's wife, not God forbid, not Eliyahu's wife. Achav's wife is going to be a big problem. Eliyahu Hanavi and Jezebel are going to be the top antagonists of this era of Jewish history. And only one of them is going to get eaten by dogs.
Jezebel.
Spoiler alert. Yes. God wins, buddy. I don't know how to say it. God wins. That's the end. That's where we end. God wins. But getting there is a real unfortunate journey that Eliyahu has to go on.
Right.
But he is quite a great figure, and it is wonderful to see his story beginning here as we conclude. I want to thank the folks online